It's the third time that I'm recording this video. My cat hates when I'm productive. To systematically reinvent yourself, you have to find wherever your energy is leaking, where your weaknesses are, and you have to plug those holes before you start to move forward in any way, shape, or form. An example for me is whenever I start to do music and I have some sort of momentum with it, there's usually an urge to smoke weed or an urge to drink. Now, these are energy leakages because whenever I drink, my ability to hold a schedule usually plummets drastically. And whenever I smoke weed, I usually become a couch potato and I don't do anything. I know that's usually a stereotype, but for me, it's a stereotype that reigns true. I avoid these vices and drugs because it doesn't facilitate any growth on my end or in my life. You need to be able to fix the holes and patch where your attention, your dopamine, where your energy is going before you can replace whatever schedule you had before you can fill your time, your schedule, your vessel with better and positive energy, for lack of a better word. Now, what prompted this video was me learning about Rahu and Ketu, or the North Node and South Node for the Western astrologers. Astrology has been a philosophical avenue for me because of the archetypes that the planets are supposed to represent. For example, Jupiter, a lot of people see as luck or, some sort of growth or expansion. But what is taught is that it's just luck. Whereas the entire archetype of Jupiter is the growth, the expansion, what it takes to get that. The reason why it is the guru in Vedic astrology is because you need to have faith in order to grow, in order to do a certain thing. Like that saying goes, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. That is a representation of Jupiter. You take a bunch of shots because you have faith that one of them will land. So the reason why like I said, the reason for this video was because of my knowledge or learning about Rahu and Ketu. Rahu is the endless desire, the area in life where you have no familiarity, you don't know where you're going, and you're being pushed to move in that area. And if you don't, that area will sabotage the rest of your life and it will cause issues. The opposite being Ketu, where your past life, if you believe in that. If you don't believe in that, it is where you are naturally comfortable and where you're supposed to kind of move away from, but also kind of trust. So you have one side where you're supposed to go toward, but you're not comfortable at all, and the other side where you're completely comfortable, but you're not supposed to attach to. Mine is in the 10th house. My Rahu is in the 10th house. My Ketu is in the 4th house. For those who don't know about astrology, the 10th house is career and public facing. All of this, what I'm doing right here, this is 10th house stuff, because this is technically, creativity and, the stuff that I'm putting out here. But, the reputation that I'm building and what my skill set is 10th house. That's what that is. That's what that's supposed to represent. 4th house being the home, being at home. So you have what you do outside, where you hunt, and where you bring your hunt back to. That's the axis, between the 10th and the 4th. And it made me think, I am so comfortable. I am very comfortable. I have been sitting on my couch. I've been lazing around, looking at TikTok, looking at YouTube, and not doing a damn thing for myself. And the thing is with that is that's where the leakage was. That's where that leakage of dopamine and attention was. I could not muster up the focus to focus on what I was supposed to be creating, which is stuff like these videos or even music, my songs. I wasn't able to do that. And I wasn't able to do the things that were necessary in order to fuel my creative mind. The creative mind takes a lot of input, and you're supposed to synthesize output based on what has inspired you. That inspiration comes from your predecessors. Both art and science is built off of the backs of giants. However, if you are in a consumptive loop with short form content or any form of cheap dopaminergic behaviors, you are not going to have good output when it comes to your creativity. This is kind of like what happens with AI when they train off of their own information. It becomes regurgitated slop. And what will also hinder your progress is how much your attention span is affected. This is an energetic leak. Your attention is you can think of it like electricity going through a wire. If you're on social media, it becomes a live wire. It becomes a live wire. It doesn't go anywhere. And it will damage the area around it. And it will be harmful to the people who try to engage with that wire. Whereas if it is plugged into something, you have some area that you can plug your dopamine and your attention span into, like let's say learning piano. I have this piano on the right of me right now. Or reading a book, or, just creating something. It is a better little cut in the video, but it is a better use of your time, your energy, your resources. And it will actually plug into something. Whereas social media, it's consumptive, it doesn't go anywhere, it doesn't lead to you generating or creating anything. You are just eating. You're constantly eating. And it is an energetic leakage. There is a scripture in the Bible that talks about this. I cannot remember off the top of my head since I don't script these things. But that scripture in the Bible talks about not being able to pour new wine into old vessels. You cannot pour new wine into old vessels. Jesus said that, I believe, in the Sermon on the Mount in Matthew. But it's true. I mean, if you're trying to add new habits onto a schedule that is filled with a lot of your old negative behaviors, then you're not going to be very productive, because those old behaviors don't facilitate the new habits that you're trying to add on. In fact, they take away from it. That's why it's considered a leak, you know? So you got to patch the leaks. And those leakages are usually patched by removal, like dopamine, you remove that. If you are trying to instill new financial habits, let's say by budgeting and, cooking and, doing all the things that you're supposed to be doing as a, responsible adult with your finances, and you still go and eat out all the time, or you're ordering Uber Eats constantly, or you're used to that, really. Let's say even just, I'm trying to save money so that I can have a little bit more left over after I pay for my rent. Then you will, and if you are ordering Uber Eats, then you you're not going to have that money left over. You need to remove that leak. So it's simple, it's really intuitive. It's not something that's like, you know, super, like, fucking mind blowing or whatnot. But the thing is that these things are usually these things are so ingrained into us. It's easy to know that these things are, problems in our lives, but it's hard to remove. And it's just that it's such a quantum leap once you remove these things, And I'm saying I'm saying quantum leap, not saying that this is like a quantum mechanic or anything like that. It really isn't. Like when I say quantum leap, I mean in the most, like, I guess, colloquial meaning of the term. Like you'll just shift completely. It takes repetition, it takes effort, it takes work to continue to train positive behaviors into your life. But it takes 21 days, right? It takes 21 days to set a new habit, and it's necessary to do so. There's a lot of people who are trying to do things with their life, and they have all these old behaviors, and they're not looking at how those behaviors are reflections of parts of themselves that believe that these things are necessary. Hold on a second. Cat attack. But, all right. To like kind of mention something, like in this book, Kabbalion, it's a good book. I recommend reading it. You get these dictums like, these universal laws, or I guess this is where these universal laws are highlighted. But the law of as within, so without. We don't know whether or not the reality we see or perceive is real. It's all kind of a projection of our consciousness and a perception of who we are. Now, to say that it is real, and I do believe that it is real, the reality that we live in is real, even still, what is going to be in your environment and what is going to be in your vicinity is going to reflect who you are as a person. That's what a psychic projection is. If your room is dirty constantly, and if you have mountains of trash around you, you don't really have a high self-perception. It's just not there. So, the behaviors are also going to be a reflection of how you believe or what you believe in yourself. That being, like, if you are a constant drinker, if you're alcoholic, you have a crutch, and it's like a baby bottle. You have something in your life that you don't like, you're having a hard time dealing with, and so you're going to cry about it and then drink. And you're not going to deal with that thing. If you smoke weed, maybe you're avoiding reality altogether. Maybe reality sucks for you. If you have a dirty house or environment, like I said, you probably don't think highly of yourself. Or if you are constantly addicted to video games, then the stuff that you're doing in real life doesn't. You either don't view it as a prospect, as something that's going to return any form of investment of time, maybe because of the economy, or maybe because, you don't see this as, benefiting you in your love life or benefiting you in any other area of your life. You don't see it being beneficial. So if you're, if you're playing video games, you're getting some sort of validation or some sort of achievement from those games. So it's, interesting that we we have all these things that kind of reflect how we are internally, and as we kind of clean those things up externally, the reflection shows. But the behaviors can be looked at on their own, regardless of whether you want to change anything outside of yourself. If you just want to change those behaviors just because they don't add to your life, then the outside reflection is going to show that you are taking some sort of initiative to change yourself, to change, to grow, to be better, to do better. And all you're doing is patching those leaks. Oh, that's all you're doing. You see that there is some sort of positivity that could be garnered from your life. And the way that you go about getting it is by removing the nicotine addiction. You throw out your vape, you throw out your pack of cigarettes, you stop buying Zins. And now all of a sudden you have a steady stream of dopamine throughout the day instead of spiking it, every time that, people piss you off at work, or every time you get bored. Now you have the ability to deal with that boredom. And that's really what it is. It's like you are building the vessel to contain the energy. The vessel is who you are, that person who you become when you don't need the leakages. You don't need social media in order to feel stimulated. You don't need any of that. So that's really the video. That's what was on my mind, and I just wanted to make something because I'm going through a transitionary period of my life. Anybody who studies astrology knows about the Saturn return. Anybody who doesn't study astrology, that late 20s, you usually start to see areas of your life disappearing or getting older. Like, your parents are getting older. You start to see areas where you regret. You start to see areas where you want to improve. And you start to see areas of your life where you want something better than what you had in your 20s. Or you've been committed and you're starting to see the fruits of those labors. But it's a maturing period. It is a time period where you want better for yourself. And that's where I'm at now. I've come from a place where I was constantly beating myself up. That was one leak, because I had a negative self-image because of things that I believed were my fault, or things that I adopted as far as my worldview for myself from other people who didn't have the best intentions for me or didn't believe in me. So that was one leak. The other leak was, social media and video games. Those were leakages. Pornography is a big one. Nicotine, drinking, weed, those were other ones. And the more I got older, the more I patched those leaks, and I start to see a different form of myself, a form that's more focused on something else. Now, the focus in and of itself can be debilitating, because if you're not already knowledgeable of where you want to go, it could feel perilous because you're lost. But you being lost is better than you being at a surface level, and being lost is better than being at rock bottom. Now, rock bottom, the only way you have is up. But after you climb out of that pit, after you climb out of hell, now you're like, well, what do I do now? But once that's a great place to be, because now you're deciding what to do. It's a different mode. It's a different shift, because you're making a decision instead of other things making the decision for you. Those behaviors are going to continue to make those decisions for you because they come from a place of lack. And it's like a vacuum. And if you know about physics, when molecules are exposed to a vacuum, they have to spread out because of the law of entropy. So, or they have to fill, the vacuum has to be filled. You know what I mean? So instead of having that vacuum that's always trying to be filled and never filling, you start to patch that up and you start to move on and be better. And it's better to be that way. And then when you find something, you start to log on to it and push yourself toward that. It's better to do that, than to be lost with vice. And the thing is like these things have their place in our life. Like it's better to have, let's say video games or, even drinking and smoking weed. I don't demonize these things. I've done it. It's not the most destructive thing in the world. Over time it can very well be, but as a reward for a long day's work or months of effort, it's way better as that. And it's better to use it as that because it's like a Pavlovian reinforcement and you rewarding yourself, a reward system. So you just want to fix the leakage of behavior. That's going to do way better for you. It will leave you lost, but then the only other option is to be found, to find a direction. My cat is really pissed off because he thinks he's being left out, but he kept biting my foot while I was trying to do these previous recordings, and I was so distracted. There's but so much teeth to my foot that I can take. So if you hear him in the background, he's just complaining because he can't derail my video. But I got it done. Take care, y'all. Peace out.